welcome to our final speaker, Kshama.
Brothers, thank you so much for this warm welcome and the standing ovation I will accept on behalf of Socialist Alternative and the CWI. I thank all the inspiring speakers who came before me and the generous contributions that you all have made. And as Dave correctly said, the working class is fully capable of exercising its solidarity and making enormous financial sacrifices in the wake of their own suffering. And you have shown that here today. It is wonderful to be here with you and to be able to speak in the city where the Committee of the Workers International was born 40 years ago, and to be celebrating with you the 50th anniversary of the Socialist paper. I bring you warm greetings from Socialist Alternative in the United States, who, as Sarah said, are the sister organization of the Socialist Party in England and Wales, of the Socialist Party in Ireland, and our organization in Scotland. I am happy to join you here and to also bring you greetings from my city of Seattle. Since we won a $15 minimum wage, many things have been written about what a peculiar city Seattle might be to elect a socialist council member in the heart of global capitalism, and then right after pass the highest minimum wage in the country, more than double the federal minimum. And while Seattle is a very beautiful city, I can tell you that our election to City Council and the victory on 15 has less to do with the particulars of Seattle and far more with the early awakening of the US working class. It has far more to do with Seattle's low-wage workers themselves, with Socialist Alternative and the CWI, and above all, our ideas of socialism and an understanding of class struggle. The fight to increase the minimum wage to 15 is just a first glimpse of the power of the mighty American working class, which has been dormant for far too long. Our election last year, as the first open socialist in Seattle in a century, and the success of 15 now, the grassroots campaign we have launched, show the searching of American workers for a way to fight back against the assault on their living standards. It reveals a hunger for new strategies to win after 3 decades of class war from above. It shows a growing questioning of capitalism and an openness to socialist ideas. We gather here at a momentous time. To be sure, this is not an easy period for the working class. There are mass movements, thousands have moved into struggle, but there are also setbacks. Globally, we see both revolution and counter-revolution. But the working class stands at the threshold of movements on a gigantic scale that will convulse society in the months and years to come. It is our good fortune that we will be able to shape these struggles, and we have already begun. Socialist Alternative, together with you and all of our comrades in the CWI, has scored stunning victories in the US over the last year. We heard from Ireland, where a massive movement against austerity was built, and now the Socialist Party has 3 seats of parliament. Congratulations to you from us, from the US working class. And of course, there has been our breakthrough in Seattle. After winning the 15 minimum wage through the grassroots movement, we have continued to use our council office as an unrelenting and unapologetic voice for the working class and against corporate politics. With the leadership of courageous indigenous activists, we recently replaced Columbus Day in Seattle with an Indigenous Peoples Day. Transforming a day that celebrated a colonizer and mass murderer to a day that celebrates indigenous culture and will be a step forward in the fight against racism and discrimination. We have worked alongside labor unions to bring justice for some of the lowest paid East African immigrant workers at a local hospital. We are also currently fighting alongside tenants, low-income tenants of the Seattle Housing Authority, an institution that is mandated with protecting low-income housing and which is actually carrying out the actions of a slumlord. They have started a program, they have tried to institute a program ironically called Stepping Forward, which will be a big step back for low-income people. They're saying that their rents have to go up by 400% in the next 5 years. The tenants are furious, and we are fighting with them as the tenants united against Stepping Forward. While other city politicians, including the mayor, spend their time hobnobbing with big business lobbyists and pushing their agenda, we are fighting for affordable housing and against homelessness. We are working day and night to empower the working class, the immigrant community, and women. Our campaign has been inspiring. The Seattle City Council pays each council member around $117,000 a year. I think that's roughly 80,000 pounds, I think. That is completely out of touch with the average worker. We campaigned by pledging that if we were elected, we would take home only the average worker's wage of $40,000. And we are putting the rest into a solidarity fund for worker struggles the world over. Working people are able to see the difference with having a socialist at City Hall as opposed to Democratic Party politicians. And despite the many ongoing attempts of the political establishment to spin our victories as a one-off event that is not rooted in real mass opinion, despite the corporate media trying to portray us as too far left and out of touch, our support in Seattle has been growing. A recent poll showed that our council office has more than 60% approval rating. This is by far the highest of any council member in his or her district for next year's election. Of course, we should take nothing for granted and we should not be complacent. But we are confident that we will be able to defend this seat. Why? Because fundamental political and social shifts are beginning to occur in the US due to the effects of the deepest economic crisis of American capitalism in living memory and the bankruptcy of capitalist politicians. The results from the midterm congressional elections in the United States, which Sarah mentioned, with the Republicans taking control of the House and the Senate, are not indicative of any latent conservatism of Americans or a political shift to the right, as some bourgeois commentators would have it. Rather, they reveal the complete failure of the Democratic Party to deliver on any of the hopes invested in them after the election of Obama. The deep disgust of the American working class with corporate politics can be seen in the low voter turnout that Peter mentioned, with exit polls showing historic low approval ratings for the whole political establishment of the Republicans and the Democrats. 2/3 of even those who went to the ballot say that they don't expect any change from the candidates they just voted for. At the same time, the reactionary Republicans have won the Senate, but a wave of progressive measures have swept through in the elections. Minimum wage increases in the same elections were passed in 4 states, paid sick leave, marijuana legalization, and many other progressive measures. And yet the Democrats have been trounced in the same elections. Americans are moving to the left, and the Democrats have lost ground by yet again proving themselves to be shameless shills for the hated corporate establishment. We're seeing this shift happening all over the world. We've talked about Ireland. We should also mention South Africa and the many inroads that the CWI has made to the tremendous role we have played. Consciousness has been shaken. The world is changing. But unlike in Europe and many other parts of the world, the US working class is not weighed down by the disappointments from past betrayals of social democracy like New Labour in Britain. Working people, particularly young people, are more prepared at this moment in the US than perhaps in Europe to embrace socialism, which to many young Americans is a new and intriguing idea. Capitalism clearly to them represents a dead end, and opinion polls show that 80% of American parents expect that their children will not have the same living standards that they had. However, unacceptable social conditions are never enough to move working people into action. They need confidence, and they need a real hope of victory. For that, they need true champions of their causes, a leadership able to win battles, and an organization that is willing and prepared to fight to the end. You are doing this here. You have shown that through the many victories that have been talked about tonight. And working people have found that leadership in Seattle with Socialist Alternative. We had small numbers to begin with. Why were we different? Why was an organization of less than 100 people able to win the highest minimum wage in such a huge country? It was because we had very clear class analysis, something we share with the Socialist Party here and the whole of the CWI. As Marxists, we have unwavering confidence in working people, that they will embrace and fight for these ideas, because our program of socialism expresses the needs of the working class and offers the chance of real victory. The fast food strikes, which began in late 2012, indicated that there was a mood to be tapped, a huge potential. Socialist Alternative and some of the bolder layers within the labor movement understood the situation. Socialist Alternative was able to foretell that the demand for 15 had the potential to excite workers and unleash their power. Our campaign struck a powerful chord with working people of Seattle and throughout the US. And what will we get from this 15 victory? As Sarah said, it's a transfer of $3 billion from the bosses to the workers. This is historic. 100,000 low-wage workers in Seattle will be lifted out of poverty. We see a massive and growing outrage at income inequality. The rich are enjoying a profitable recovery while the living standards of most working people are still below pre-recession levels. We have managed to begin to harness this anger. We organized a powerful grassroots movement. We linked up with the trade unions, with the rising support of rank-and-file union members and a few courageous union leaders. Even some of the conservative union leaders were brought into the class struggle. We have helped to further spread the movement throughout the US, and there are now 15 branches in over 20 cities, and the fight is on. The rebuilding of the trade unions is absolutely necessary. Too many trade union leaders are used to merely going through the motions, lacking conviction that they can defeat the bosses. One prominent trade union leader in Seattle, during the fight for 15, asked us skeptically, "You don't actually believe that you can defeat big business, do you?" They substitute the idea of action by the working class with the mobilization of staffers, paid union organizers who can be counted at marches rather than the mass involvement of workers. What we need is labor leadership such as has been shown by the Bakers Union, our work in Tusk, our work inside PCS and Unison. That's what we need. Our successes, you should brought it up. Our successes have shown that we need independent representation for working people. As you are building the trade union and socialist coalition here in England and Wales as a voice for working people, we are pushing for the first steps towards a new mass workers' party in the US. A party that will offer a way to struggle not just against the insane Tea Partiers or the reactionary Republicans, but also against the big business agenda of the Democratic Party establishment. Too many so-called trade union leaders are still tied at the hip to the Democratic establishment that extorts the unions while selling out workers. Imagine the impact we could have if the labor unions would throw their weight, activists, organizational power, and money into promoting independent candidates who do not take money from corporations and into building such a mass workers' party. We understand the fears of workers faced with anti-abortion politics, racism, and the anti-worker politics of the Republicans, just as working people here want to end the nightmare of the vicious, condemned, Tory, liberal government. We have the same goals in the US. We salute your support for Tusk, and we must be perfectly clear. All corporate politics are a dead end, whether they pay lip service to our needs or cynically and openly prey on the fears of ordinary people. Working class families need mass parties of our own and that are armed with a socialist program. The forms of organization will differ from country to country, But your idea of a mass party on federal lines, bringing together all genuine socialist and working class formations, is the way forward. We have a lot to do in building towards parties that represent working people, but we are now making headway. What is helping is the way that the capitalist system is undermining itself. American capitalism is destroying the remaining illusions day by day, hour by hour, just as the betrayals of Obama and the Democrats have done. All the institutions of capitalism are rotten and are seen as rotten by increasing sections of the population. For instance, the US Congress, according to a recent opinion poll, is less popular than head lice and cockroaches. It is a thoroughly discredited 225-year-old institution that clearly represents millionaires and billionaires. It presides over disgusting levels of inequality. And a billionaire in Seattle himself warned his own class that unless they made urgent concessions, the pitchforks are coming for us plutocrats. Big business and its spokespeople are terrified by this contagious effect that they know our victory will have, and are determined to stamp out our example of socialism in action in Seattle. They intend to put up a left Democrat against me in the elections next year. They will have the fight of their life. They will have the fight of their life with the army of grassroots support that we have built and continue to build. And the example of Seattle is being taken up elsewhere with independent and socialist candidates, a real possibility in the next elections. But this goes hand in hand with the revolt of young people crushed by the burden of student debt and the uprising of the black community in Ferguson, Missouri, where a young black man was killed by a racist, militarized police force. The protests in Ferguson, where the young black men and women told the black establishment to go home and leave them to build the movement, that shows the explosive potential of this new generation that is prepared to fight back and reject the old leaders who have betrayed them so bitterly. At the same time, there is this issue of climate change, the overwhelming reality that the planet faces. I recently spoke at a gathering in New York in September alongside Naomi Klein before the march of more than 500,000 people. Our clear message that solving the climate change crisis directly poses the question of democratic public ownership of energy resources was enthusiastically received by the nearly 1,000 people in the audience. Our call at the same meeting for Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders to run as an independent working class candidate in the 2016 presidential elections was met with thunderous applause. A new chapter of mass involvement from below is unfolding. Working people and young people are moving into struggle to defend against this disastrous system. They are fighting to change their lives. They are fighting for their lives. And our job is to channel this growing search for change into courageous and self-sacrificing formations that will win victories for our side. And we must build on those victories to usher in a new future, a socialist future. comrades, our appeal here, let's fight together and build the CWI. All of us here, let's fight together and build a powerful socialist movement because we have a world to win. Solidarity.